a lot of people know that I went to Texas Tech. In 2002, I was a freshman at Texas Tech, and it's about 5 hours from my house in the DFW area. And growing up, I was a diehard mama's boy, very close to my parents. So moving 5 hours away from me, for me, was a gigantic deal. And, I mean, seriously, the day that my parents dropped me off at Texas Tech, I'm on the curb crying. It was a weird experience for me, and anybody who's moved away and gone away for college, they know what I'm talking about. And I went through this, especially if you're close to your parents. I went through this time where it's weird for me to say this, as sociable as I am, but I would immediately after class go to my room and just play video games, and I didn't know what to do for the first time in my life. I didn't know anybody. I didn't know where to go. I didn't know who to talk to. I didn't have any friends. It was a weird time for me. And I met this guy named O.J. Garcia. And O.J. had this contagious personality and energy about him. And he was involved in everything. All right? And this guy, O.J., got me involved in a couple of organizations. We both played tuba in the band. And we got to know each other. And before I knew it, I'm like, man, this dude's my best friend. I mean, we bonded so quickly, we clicked. And it was, again, my freshman year of college. This guy taught me so much just being there of how to adapt and everything else. So my freshman year, the Texas Tech football team makes it to the Tangerine Bowl in Orlando. And OJ and I, you have to pick a roommate. You have to pick a person to sit next to on the bus, person to sit next to on the plane. And he was my travel buddy, for lack of better terms. So we were pumped about it. And as I went home back to Dallas, he told me, hey, man, see you in Orlando. I got a call on December 19th, 2002 from my friend Melissa. And she said, it was around 8:37 in the morning. I'll never forget it. And she said, OJ's died. And that feeling, that shock, that reaction is something that I will never forget. And if you have ever had a loved one close to you pass away, specifically at a young age, you know what I'm talking about. Just that feeling that you can't put into words. It's a terrible, horrid feeling. I hope that no one ever has to feel it. And I just fell down in the front yard in tears. And I decided to go to the Tangerine Bowl. And I'll never forget that Cliff Kingsbury, now the head coach at Texas Tech, was the quarterback then. He leads Tech back to upset Clemson by multiple touchdowns. He's the MVP of the game. And after the game, he came over to the band, holds up the MVP trophy, and he says, this was for OJ. Thank you guys for being here. And just the tears and the emotion, it was a cool moment for me. But one thing that I've established as I've grown up, and every day I think of this kid. Every day I think of OJ and the impact that he had on me in the short amount of time that I knew him. He was 18 years old. I always think about how he passed away. He fell asleep at the wheel, drowsy driving. He was tired. They were driving. He and a buddy were driving through the night. He was following a friend, and the friend talks about how they stopped at a gas station to take a break, and OJ was running around the car like, man, I'm exhausted, baby. I'm exhausted. I'm trying to wake up. And the friend was like, come on, man, we got to go. You got this. To this day, that friend has that guilt. But if I can tell you anything, especially around the holiday season, so you go hang out with family and friends, and a lot of you are traveling and going on for the rest of your life, if you can just remember, don't drive drowsy. If you're tired, pull over. I believe I'm a God guy. I believe, and if you aren't, hey, that's okay. I don't judge anybody. It's fine. Do your own thing. But me personally, I believe everything happens for a reason. And I believe this guy was taken from us so that we can spread the word about drowsy driving. And I feel that through different things I've been a part of for drowsy driving prevention. We had a run for him for a couple of years. We have a scholarship program. We have a lot of different things to bring attention to drowsy driving, and I've tried my best to be a part of these things. If we can bring attention, if we can save a life, and I think we've already saved one, you never know, obviously, but we can continue to save lives and remind people, if you're driving, if you're tired, please don't drive drowsy. Because the one thing that I still remember, Joe, it's Armen and Levack. We're live from Save More Beverage in Clifton Park. Come see us with Bud Light. We got our Super Bowl send-off. The one thing I remember, Joe, is his mom. And she was, to say it changed her life is the most minimal statement I could ever say and completely degrade the situation. I talked to her once a month, and I just saw about after a year, man, that she was having a hard time moving on. And, and every time I talked to her, we recollected what happened and why he's not here. And And it came a point where one of the tough decisions for me was I just said, Mrs. Garcia, I gotta give you your space because you have to figure out a way in life to move on and enjoy yourself. And I know to an extent that she has, but I also know that her son is forever lost. She will never have her son back. So please, I don't mean to stop down and completely, sadden the day for you. That is not whatsoever my intentions. My complete intentions are that don't drive when you're tired. I mean, and Joe, it's funny. I mean, how many times have you gotten in the car and you're driving and you're like, man, I can tough this thing out. I mean, and I still do it to this day, but you know what I do now? I think of OJ and I pull over and I take a break or I take a nap or I go, give me a rock star or I do whatever I need to do,
Right.
So it's this time of year, December 19th, exactly 12 years ago today, that OJ left us. And again, driving drowsy, man, just please be careful out there in the holiday season, especially when you are driving long distance.